Galit, I'm just doing your name differently. Hello Galit, thank you for accepting to come to Iași after also a presentation to Sibiu in Astra Library with Iasi in the frame of Transit Sibiu. Today, I mean, the title of your presentation, as it was when we discussed about your coming, was Curating in Dark Times. I think it fits very well. I mean, it fits somehow locally today, although it's not the same at all, and it's something that it's like very small what happened today to us, to Transit Iași in relation to what you will present. But you might be the last, one of the last people presenting in the space of Transit Iași, because we've been announced that our rent will be double since 1st of January next year, because we should not have different regime than a business. So Artists Union decided that it should be transparent and all prices should be transparent, therefore also cultural institutions, associations should pay the same rent as a bar and a tourist agency. So we don't know, I've just been announced, so we will take this, we will think about it. How can we pay this rent and help Artists Union to be transparent and treat equal cultural enterprises and business, small enterprises and old business on enterprise. I was very grateful all the time and happy that we found the space to pay the rent to an artist union. I thought that this is important because we were Transit is one of the most privileged institutions in Romania able to pay rent, able to pay at least 3 salaries for all institutions in Romania, for the whole entire institution, but had this privilege so far. So we were thinking that it's very good that we can pay this money are going to an artist union and not to a private owner or yeah. But apparently we didn't pay enough. So their need to become transparent it's bigger than some sort of I don't know, friendship and solidarity within the field. So thank you all for coming. Yeah. I just used you.
You used the situation, not me.
Yeah, I used this opportunity to say this out loud. Yeah, Artists Union is the institution that have in the whole country like most of the spaces. Yeah. But they are old institutions.
And the heritage, the place from where? Like how
they as far as I know, they inherited, this place was given, this entire building was given by like a bourgeois with the specific, how do you say, specific, yeah, no, but it was given to the city hall, and city hall was...
It was a will of someone?
Yeah, and a will to the city hall, and city hall had to rent it only to artists. That was the aim. And then they rented, of course, to Artists Union in the 50s. And now Artists Union decided because they are self-sustainable.
But they are not own it. It's not like they are not own it. They still belong to the city. They just
yes, belong to the city. So the city rents to Artists Union sublet to small businesses and cultural association, not anymore. Yeah, we were cultural entrepreneurs. We should be more entrepreneurial. Sorry?
We can talk after the presentation. There are a lot of things you can do. You can write a letter to be signed by artists in the art scene, and you can intervene in their meetings because they have kind of
we are live streamed already. We are live streamed.
Yeah.
Yes, but I think it's a very good advice. Yeah, I think it's good advice.
To treat equally all the arts initiatives in
What is interesting is that under this discourse of transparency.
No, the transparency it's with the other business around. So it's to be equal in the payment, as I understood, with the bar next door.
A bar next door and a travel agency. And not to say, I mean, we are paying rent, which is big. I don't know. I don't know if I should say. I don't know by contract if I'm allowed to say the rent or not. But it's
Why not?
yeah. It's 2,600 lei per month. So it's around 500 euros and something.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like we don't pay rent. So it was a present so far, and now they decided no. And it will be double for 48 square meters.
Yeah, but I think it's good. It's a good opportunity to exercise solidarity from people that use the space. Yeah, this is one of the offer, and I think it's a good offer, like to make a petition or to I can't advise because I don't know the city, so I don't know what kind of methods could work, but
I wanted to like shortly read your short view. Like everybody here probably knows who you are, but maybe somebody on our online public, because we are live stream, so hello to everybody that is now online with us. So Galit Eilat research seeks to develop conditions that enable collective encounters and experiences underpinned by a critical view towards the status quo. Deploying eclectic, site-specific projects, often in collaboration with grassroots, politically active groups and individuals, Galit Eilat unravels the intertwined themes of political ideology, theology, the nation-state, and the production of history. Pivotal within such projects is the process of knowledge dissemination, which departs from the ethos that art is charged with the potential to ignite social change and must, therefore, be accessible to all, not a privileged few.
Yeah. It's interesting, Sibiu. I think it was a statement, but...
Yeah, it's not civil service.
No, it's good. It's good. This is what I asked. Yes,
yeah.
It's not to have like, okay, I did this and this, and I was here and there. Can be read everywhere. So thank you for coming, and I hope that somebody is, some of my friends maybe, listening to us. I asked on the way, what is dark time? Like, why dark time? So I said that. The dark time of the future, that future to come, and also I will talk mainly, but then I will shift like the situation that I work in Israel and what we did, and the way that I see the role of Public Art Institute beside representation, so how we were used to work, and this is what I expect also, I think, from other public institutes to take a similar role, and also then I will shift more about the present and certain things that I see today and that already I think quite dark. So I don't know if we need more than this, but as we know, many things happening at the same time, so we can see certain things that happened at once in different geographies, and it's not always link or clear the link between them, why it's happened at the same time. The Middle East, it's already, I think, more than 20 years in war. It's not that it was quiet in the past 100 years, but or 70 years. But Iraq, it's almost not exist as it was in the past, and we can see Syria. We can track and to ask the question why, but this is something that we are facing, and I think this is also influenced very much other places, the conflict there. So it's one hand we have a conflict, but on the other hand we see a new group that manage to recruit quite a lot of supporters. In the past it was called extremists or terrorists. I think it's groups, but we can see it also in other places. And so this is one in the Middle East, but also we can see what's happening in Turkey and in Brazil. And we can see almost a bit between the two places. From 2013, the demonstration in two places, not exactly with the same reason. People were on the street. The coup also happened differently, but most or less at the same time. And now the situation going even worse than in Turkey, I think what will happen in Brazil. So there is a worry for the future. Working in both places, so I become very aware also here, like hearing a bit the situation here. So I would like to start with the project that for me was, I think, a turning point. It was in 2001, I arrived to Israel, I opened the center, the Israeli Center for Digital Art Lab, and every Friday I used to go to a demonstration in different places, one in Built-in, and also in other places. It's something that I felt that I need to do beside being a public, director of a public institute. It's to work with other people and to know what's happened with, and to see things and to feel with my own eyes, my own body, and not just to be consume what is delivered from the media. And in one of the demonstrations, me and another colleague felt that something that doesn't work. We couldn't put the finger, but maybe there is another way to be able to communicate and to move ahead. So we organized an event in Abu Dis. I will show Abu Dis at this time in 2004. The wall was not completed, and Abu Dis it's a village under the municipality of Jerusalem. Here we can see where it is. It's not far away from west to east Jerusalem. We can see also the green line, so it's on the other side of the borders of 48, not 67. So it's part of the Jerusalem municipality. In one day, that the wall was complete. As children that used to go to school, 10 minutes, just going in the village, had to spend more than 1 hour because they need to cross the gate in the wall, to wait that somebody will open for them, etc. So during the time that the wall was built, we decided to make an action and to bring people that from our side, it's not from the other side, of people that think different than us, but people that were against the wall but never visit the wall, never had the experience to be around. So we started with something quite simple. And we focus on conceptually not to leave traces on the wall. We were very, it's funny to think about it after, or today we were very careful not to beautify the wall and not to make it ugly. It was the whole discourse around if artists should make an action on the wall. So we were dealing with this, but so we decided to come with 2 video projectors. We took from the center 2 video projectors, 2 cameras, and we went to the wall without any plan, because we can't do exercise, we can't check, to do sound check or video check or any check before. So we arrived and we started to build a closed circuit camera. So now you see the other side. So there is the camera behind me. You see the camera, and then you see the image of the other side. So people ask me, so what is about the Israeli side or the Palestinian side? Both are Palestinian side. So it's not like the 2 sides, Israeli and Palestinian, the wall going to 2 sides which are Palestinian. What happened at this time that was very, very interesting, and we didn't expect, it's how people from the village react, because we work with some people from the place itself, otherwise we couldn't do it. And the interaction also taking, I need to, excuse me, it doesn't work another way, so I need to, I think it's open somewhere, this one?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah. Okay. So I will talk and I will show you part of the thing in the background. So we installed in the afternoon until night, we installed the video cameras, and in certain moments, people take, okay, this is the surrounding, maybe you should see it a bit to understand. So the border police going back and forth, they never stopped us, and yeah, this is how So it's not the worker of the center, it's just a group of people that we arrived there and we decided to install it. We were very lucky because in one side it's a gas station, so they let us to use the electricity. On the other side it was another shop that gave us also to use electricity. We mount the projector on this side, and the other side it was a transit. A car that we installed. The wires went under the wall. There is on each panel there are 2 holes. On each panel there are 2 holes for the crane to take the panel up and down. So this is what we use. We didn't plan before, so we didn't even imagine how we're going to do it. What you can see is that people from the village from one side just brought chairs and sit in front of it like it's open cinema. So it seems to be totally natural to come to sit, to look at the wall with the plastic chair. We didn't use sound, and the reason that we didn't use sound, if we were using a loudspeaker, then we had to get a license as a demonstration. Without it, we could gather, use the equipment, and I think one of the reasons that the border police that was crossing back and forth didn't stop us, it was strange what we are doing there, why we are using, what's going on. So they let us to continue, and I think I will move a bit ahead and then I will let the video to play. It's how people appropriated or how people took ownership on the action and start to use it for their own Okay. And this is Terry Baluta with the red shirt. She's from the village, so people appropriated, like they felt, I would say, ownership of the place, even though, think about, we're standing on the border. It's a new border just built, and we're standing and singing and running back and forth and totally disacknowledging and appropriating the space to our use. It was a few hours. For me, it was very strong to see how people react, because I didn't expect. We somehow thinking about the audience, the public, or whatever. It was no audience and public. Yes, it was an action on the wall, but it's in different ways. One, it was clear that some people were missing. So the one that could arrive, it's Israelis and Palestinians living in East Jerusalem. So the one that Palestinian living in Jerusalem, it's Palestinian holding an Israeli ID, and they can travel in 3 areas. They can travel in area A, B, and C. How I take this out here? Area A, B, and C, which is area A. It's Palestinian territory under Palestinian Authority. Area B, it's a Palestinian territory under Israeli Authority. Area A, it's Israeli territory under Israeli Authority. So this is how it's work, and I'm not allowed to be in Area A, and Palestinian not allowed to be in Area B and C. Sorry if I say something different. How I take the video down from the screen, sorry. I'm not used to this computer. Yeah. Now I want to go to my...
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not... okay, thank you very much. Yes. This is how, like, today, used, like, today, like 10 years after. So people are still trying to get over the wall in the same area. So I think here I have the map, yes. So you can see here the area A, B, and C. So now it's more clear. And full screen? Control? L. Okay, good. Okay. Great, thank you. But we work with Sabrin, which is a music group in East Jerusalem, a Palestinian studio. But what was missing is people from Ramallah. So people from the area A couldn't come to area which is considered area B, which is in between. And this is the area that the settlers can cross. So area B, it's where the settlements are. And in the surrounding, like Big Jerusalem, it's till Ramallah, so it's Al-Bire, the city in between. So this is where I can be. I can't be in A. They can go outside of A. And this moment was very important for me because something was missing. And I went later with 2 friends to Ramallah. So this is a project that started 2 years later. It took 2 years to initiate the project, and it was a project between Ramallah, Israel, and Germany. So it will be between 2 institutes. It was the Leipzig, the gallery in Leipzig, and the Berlin University. It was the art center in Holon, and it was in Ramallah. What was later on the academy, the International Academy of Art. So it was before, it was PECA, Palestinian Association for Contemporary Art. I will talk very briefly because it's important to understand the later event. But here you can see the wall. So the wall is not regular. It's not aligned with not totally with the green line. You have those islands that the wall is entering in. Sometimes it's concrete. Sometimes it's only a fence. So it's not a wall, but it's a fence, a barrier. It's a barrier, and it's going in when there are settlements. So basically, it's going around the settlements. And it's in the area that it's a fence only, it's changing. Yes, so this is the area that we have been. We've been near, I think, the dot on this side, which is like between Ramallah and Jerusalem. So it's like you see Bil'in, so it's a bit upper to Bil'in. The idea of the project was to meet in the 3 places and to produce an exhibition. We never managed to make a real exhibition. We had a tryout in Germany. The situation during those 2 years changed dramatically. It was disengagement with Gaza. At this time when we had a plan to go to Gaza. So this is changed, we had to change the project, but also in relation to the boycott, which started in Ramallah in 2005. It was PACB initiated in Birzeit University. A year later, the BDS in New York started to work. And when we worked on the project, Rim Fada and Khalid Hourani took 2 actions to that we will be able to enter. The time was the time that the Hamas was elected, and it was the 3 months that they need to construct a government. So it was unrest, I would say, in Ramallah, and we wanted to enter 40 people. It's a group which is visible with Israeli and other international and Palestinian. So one, it was to contact the boycott committee in Birzeit. So they went to the text for all the project and basically make it, I would say, kosher. Also, I keep up to date the emails and the text and the correction that they made, because it was not just to try to use the correct language. Sometimes they say, oh, but it's an art project, it's not a demonstration. Why you are repeating this kind of very aggressive terminology? So it was like in different way, it was very, very helpful, very different than what we would see as a censorship or to be aligned in one political ideology. And the other thing is to talk with the Tanzim, which is the army force of the Fatah, and to talk with them that we will be able to enter to the refugee camp. So I said it's like the Tanzim, but in the Israeli newspaper there will be a terrorist group. Yeah, so it's basically a public institute working first. I'm not allowed to be there by military law, so we cross. As a public servant, we cross the border. We violate, and in this case, it was a military law, and also we are collaborating with the terrorist organization, according to Israeli media or Israeli representative. It was possible at this time. I don't know if it will. I don't think it will be possible today. So you can see the wall. The checkpoint was turnstile. Today it's a big. So you see, like, it was kind of small market. It was quite messy. A lot of cars going back and forth. Today it will be different. We had tours with people. This is Jeff Halper from the Committee Against House Demolition. So what they do, they build houses that are destroyed by the army as a negative action. So basically, by building a positive action, they are working against the Israeli government. Maybe I will explain just this one, and then I will shift. It's quite an interesting case that it's in Bil'in. It's one of the places that was demonstrating for 6 years, every Friday at 12 o'clock. The army or the border police in one side of the fence, the demonstration on the demonstrators on the other side. So it was a ritual of Friday at 12 o'clock for years. And they use what we call like artistic practices to create a non-violent demonstration. It's turned immediately to gas tears and plastic bullets. So it's never worked, but what they did here, they tried to do what the settlers are doing. It's to build a house overnight, and this is something that we inherit from the Ottoman Empire. So a house or 4 walls with a roof, there are certain rules that built overnight can't be demolished. And this is how the settlements and also the kibbutz. The kibbutz and the settlements use the same structure of building overnight. With the kibbutz, it's called wall and tower. So you build the wall and the tower and the thing, and overnight. Here, the Palestinians tried just to build one room, and then the army came, of course, in the morning. They saw it, they wanted to demolish it, and then they applied to the high court, and they couldn't demolish it. So it was a check to see if the court in Israel it's biased to the political situation, or there is everyone that, in front of the court, it's equal. I can't say it's equal, but in this case, they proved that the system I'm talking about something that was 10 years ago, was still the same as we know, and everywhere the situation changing rapidly in relation to, I would say, democratic or non-influence judicial system, and the one that tilt also in Israel, also in culture. So this is, I will go quickly. So it's one of the tours, and always it was historian, anthropologist, and artist working together. Many projects developed, but so we promised to. It was a project that's supported by the EU, and we promised 3 exhibitions, but during the process, the 2 years, we realized that exhibition it will be impossible to do. Also, not in Israel, not to create a camouflage of asymmetric situation that was between the places. So it's not that artists working together, so there is a piece, everything is cool, everything is done, now we can continue to other things. So not to create the misinformation or mistruth, basically to create something which is false by doing an exhibition. And we decided not to make an exhibition. It was how to explain it. And then I think it's many things happen, but one of the things today that I'm trying also to do is to work without to promise a representation in the end. So it's not need to be that always that support is given to the project to happen and immediately it's need to pay back. The payback can be a longer process and not immediately in visibility or representation. So what we did in this case, it was to collaborate with other bodies, and the works never exhibited together. They exhibited in different venues, different events. It was 2 works in Documenta of Peter Fiedel and Yael Bartana. Other works were exhibited elsewhere. If we think about it in terms of using resources, we use existing systems. So we didn't create a new exhibition, a new platform to show the works. Basically, we use the agency of other institutes, and I would say this is to work. Today, I'm looking at it also to work a bit. This is in Leipzig. I will not enter to all the politics that were there. But then we couldn't use, for example, we couldn't say that that we are under occupation. I'm going to the other direction, I think. Okay. At this time, it was very attractive because a conflict, and then there is a group that made a peace, or a group that, of Israeli and Palestinians working together. It was very attractive. To mainly European institute to show, you see, art can do it, what we can't do, otherwise art can do, which it will be very dangerous, because if we look about different projects that I think, if we think about ex-Yugoslavia, so a project that forced 2 sides to work together to show the world it's better than it is. So later on, I didn't do any big project publicly with another Palestinian organization. Also, maybe it's important to say that it was the only project that was work between institutes. It was not individuals. So it was a public institute in Israel, and the people that work in Ramallah really risk the future of the academy by collaborating with the public institute in Israel. So the money came outside of Israel. It didn't work for the Israeli state according to the BDS, but still it was a public institute with repeated activity. So one evening I was invited to get the institute to meet some people. I didn't know what it's about, and then they offered some help to a project. But I was still with it was quite fresh, the experience doing liminal spaces, and it was quite clear to me what they want, but I didn't want to promise anything which I couldn't and not stand behind it. So I said, okay, if you want to support a project, so the project will not get any publicity. It will be a publication and not an exhibition. And what I offered at this time, it was a meeting from people from different places in the Middle East that we couldn't meet. So I couldn't meet them, but also inside the Middle East, it's not the agreement that's clear and people can travel easily between one place to the other. So also active actors met at this time, also today, I think, outside of the Middle East. So it was different interested from the MoMA to bring people from the Middle East, but it's different, I think, interest that we had to meet each other and just to know what's happening. For me, to know what happened in neighbor countries when I'm not speaking Arabic, so it's not just to read, but to know how things are working and what are the conditions, and what is the possibility to try at least if not to work together, so to dream together of something that we can do, or to do in parallel, or to test. So we met, the project delegated to the Vanabe Museum, and we met, we had like several meetings in different places. So it was in Turkey twice, in Morocco, in Egypt, and in Eindhoven. So I have some photos, yeah. So maybe some of you heard about the project Picasso in Palestine, that the work of Picasso traveled to Palestine. So during those meetings, it was Khalid's idea, I think more or less here in this moment, that we entered and we saw the museum, the collection, you know. Still, it was not Morocco that we can go to, I don't know, nice area, or it was still Eindhoven in the Netherlands. So the museum was the place that we tour or stayed. So in the collection, and Khalid said it's more or less, the one that know this project, it's kind of a joke, like why not to bring Picasso? And this is adopted by the museum, and this is Louis, the conservators, that was very useful later on. So it took almost 2 years, from 2009 to 2011, to bring Picasso. It was first how to do it. The question was also why, but in the moment that it was a demand from Khaled, it was much more easy, but then the museum had to convince the city, because the museum not belonged to a private person, it's not belong to the director, it belonged to the city, and the works belong to the city or to the region. So how you convince, we met with the insurance company, so this was one process to go to know if the insurance company and the man, the head of the company, went and made the route between Ben Gurion Airport to Ramallah to see what it takes. The same checkpoint that we crossed in the past in Liminal changed by the time, and it's become a terminal. But it was few things to prepare. In Ramallah, now there is a museum, but it was no museum in Ramallah at this time. So this is like the main hall of the academy. And the main hall of the academy, this is the report of Louis, like the conservator, that I went with him and Bettina, the registrar, also to make the tour, to see what is possible, to try to figure out which company to work, because it needs to be with a carrier that's going to take it from the museum and bring it to Ramallah. So the solution was to create a museum inside the school, and to create a room which is have the climate control. One of the things that was the big fear, that the painting will go from one climate to another climate, and the fear was because this painting was traveled in the past to São Paulo and stayed in the sun in the airport, and there is a big crack all along the painting. So another climate dramatic change means that the oil paint and the canvas are reacting differently to heat and humidity. So they will not work alone, and then it will, again, the crack will return or something else will happen. So this was the big fear of Louis, that this situation will happen again. This is for he built this crate, and this crate, it's two crates. Basically, it's not one. So one, it's with plexiglass and gyros below. So if the truck is jumping on the road, so then the painting will be protected. And then the big crate. And the reason that he created crate in a crate, because we were afraid that at the checkpoint, a soldier can demand from the courier to open the boxes, and then it will be a climate change. Usually a crate stays at least 24 hours in the place itself, in the depot, before a painting or an object going inside the crate. And then it's closed and stay there, and then it starts to travel. So it's all the idea, it's not just about too high, too hot, or too humid. It's not to have any change which is dramatic. So this was the case. So this is the academy from outside. The academy not exist anymore. This is Khaled in one of the visits. This is the room. This is how the checkpoint look today. So there are different places. They look at the terminal, all of them quite big and secured by private companies, so not anymore the army. So the army there, but also a private company. A Globus, which is international courier, took the work into Ramallah. Now you enter into Ramallah. The way that it's solved, and this was the tricky part, to find somebody that can, with the same car, can take it from Ben Gurion Airport and also so from area C, for example, to area B, to area A, the one that can able to be in the three zones. In Globus, we met Samar. Samar, he was subcontractors at Globus, a Palestinian living in East Jerusalem. So he's the one that could, because other people in Globus couldn't do it. So he, the subcontractor, could go and travel between the three places, and this is how, in the moment that Samar was there, so the solution was quite simple, because he can take it and go back and forth. And he know the way, so he could know which checkpoint to enter in which hour. And then to promise that the work will come in time and nothing will happen. And of course, nothing happened. I think there are also some photos that at the checkpoint there is an Israeli soldier. I was not in the car, so I don't know. Like I saw it also, like others on the newspaper, stopped there, and it's people from the museum and the soldiers. So it was basically it went through without any problem. Beside one problem that was with the customs. So this was last moment. I got a phone call from the company. There is problem with the carnet, or the Dutch ambassador or representative didn't approve the papers. So this was like, it's happened in many exhibitions also, now that it's the last moment something stuck in the custom and everything accelerating it in the moment that it will be released. So this is Samar. My role in the project was all the time was hidden. So the way that it was represented to the media, it's that it's a Palestinian project, and this was very important at this moment. It was very important, I think, for me, that the message that will go out from Ramallah will not be about terrorists or about other event or Israeli, the IDF curfew or closure, as they call it, but another kind of a message. It will be something else, and so it was a project made by Palestinian, right by Palestinian. I think 10 years passed. So, no, it's 2011, 7 years passed. So, yeah, 7 years, it's files that can be open. So, usually I don't do it with the live streaming and don't do it much, but so I was behind also the Globus company. They did everything that this process will go smooth. So, in one hand, it was a Palestinian project, but on the other hand, as in occupation, this was no exception. Yes, as Israeli, we conduct everything that entered to the territory under occupation, and this is without a will of people that, just want to see something happen without taking the credit, without be there, just to see that it's possible to do. Yes, to have this kind of positive action, which I would say a word, collaboration, cooperation, not collaboration, could happen. Of course, today, this is okay. This is quite funny. This was the opening of the exhibition of one painting. In the academy, Khaled somehow decided that this is the right. Usually, I never saw an exhibition that opened with like a wedding, but this is like a wedding. So the bride came all the way from the Netherlands to Ramallah to find the room, and I don't think it's happened. So the bride went back. But you see that there is a lot of media, people were informed, so it's create exactly what was needed at this moment. It's to create kind of a positive vibe and also a hope of possibility. I think for Samar, and this is mainly for Samar now, to say that, so this is not, what you see here, it's not the Picasso. It was many replicas made at this time when it was in Ramallah. In different ways and different situations, people made another one, and also other people contribute. But Samar was very disappointed in the end, because for him it was, as the one that living in East Jerusalem and living with both societies, for him the successful of a project of this kind of cooperation was very important. And he tried to say this in many interviews, the good people, but he was always like this, Palestinian story was more important. So let's leave it aside. Here is Louis checking the damage that made in São Paulo. So the light is strong enough to show. It's the gun, it's not pointing to Louis. It's just there, and of course it's created a lot of funny moments that repeated. Like this one, yes, the two guards of a painting. So basically, it's Picasso, but it's Picasso that always, if you will see this Picasso somewhere, yes, you will never forget that it was a soldier there. Yeah, so it's Picasso with the soldier. It's Picasso that was in Ramallah. It's Picasso with another story. So when it came back to the Van Abbe Museum, to the collection, it's become Picasso from Palestine. I can recommend about a very good documentation of the project, which is the oral history of Picasso in Palestine that Michael Bell did. So he started with the context of the situation in Palestine. He described the conflict through history, but then also he interviews all the actors, all the people that participated. So yeah, this is I can show like, so the Charles Escher, the museum director. And here, yes. So when he published it, he interviewed me a few times, and I didn't. Okay, we will see it in a second. I didn't want to give too much information, but this was in the book, so it's he didn't give up, and probably had his reason, which is a good reason, because each one of us has his own action, and I think the position that I took at this time was very important for me. At this time, and also still important for me, the question is, I would say today it's the word that it uses privilege, the one that has privilege, the one that don't has privilege, the one that has an access, the one that don't have an access. The one that was privileged in the situation for sure as an occupier. I could do more, and it's something that we, in the center in general, we did quite a lot from liminal spaces, all our activity. Beside the exhibition and the message in the exhibition, it was very important, for example, if people had to go to Israel from different reasons, not just to see exhibition, to work with an art center, or to go to the hospital, they knew that we, as a center, can help them, and all he help, it's not in our hands, to send a request to the army to get a permit. So it's something that we did all the time. In certain moment, people knew about it. So it was people coming from agriculture, people that we didn't know, were calling and asking if they can, or email that I got, and it was always yes. Because this is the role that was very important for me as a director, and I think to all the people that work, because it's extra work, yes? And I can't say to anyone in the office, you should do and must do it, it's part of your work. It's not part of anyone's work, according to the contract, but it's something that we felt that we need to do. And I think today, if we're talking about dark times, so I think like one of the things and the role of a public institute is to try and help. In Europe, I would say, it's not maybe with the refugees, but it can be with immigrants, with the colleagues that moving from one place can't get a Schengen visa, so a museum can help doing it. even if it's not the artist that's going to work with the museum, yes? As a structure, I think this is something that we all, and this is why I'm talking now, yes? It's one of the things that I think people can keep in mind, that the symbolic value, or the power as a public institute, part of the structure, you can help people and make the structure to work for them. If you are in the system, so this is one of the things that we can do, if, and to use the structure that we are, that others that don't have unprivileged or are in certain kind of trouble, can be helped and support. Yeah, so this is like the. From here, I will continue to another project, and I will connect it to something that today I'm more aware, and in the past I was less aware. I worked later after this project for as a freelance with the Van Museum. I worked with others. 2010, between 2010 and 11, I left Israel. I couldn't work after 10 years. First as director, I think it was enough 10 years to be a director, but also the situation changed with the election of the government that's still ruling now, and all the, I would say, unwritten, unspoken agreement that were with the culture ministry, or the part of the culture. It was not a policy, never, but I was a director and I was crossing the law, yes? I work against the law in several cases. And I could continue to be a director until a certain moment. And this was kind of an agreement that we also produce something that the state representation can use. Yes, they can use it more democratic, more left. We have different kind of art institute, also this kind of art institute, and we allowed it to happen. And of course, by allowing it to happen, it gave me certain kind of freedom. This is end. So we are not shy anymore that we occupy the Palestinian. We are not shy anymore that we are racist. We are not shy anymore that we hear today more and more, and I think in more and more places. It started in Israel in 2010. And this moment was clear to me that I will not be able anymore to work in the way that I work. So basically, that if it's the city or the government will not will let me do things if I'm not making too much noise and too many mistakes. We did one mistake with liminal spaces. I wrote to the people how they can enter through Ben Gurion and what they shouldn't say. I never worked for the security services, so I didn't really know. It's like my logic only. And this letter found when people left. But at the same time, I sent a list of names of all the people that came to the culture ministry to help them to enter without security check. So when people left, they had a list one by one. They checked, a strip check, all the process of. Because they knew that they've been in Ramallah and been in other places, so the Foreign Office freezed the relation with the center for 2 years. Yeah, so I was punished when I was not careful enough or something happened. But we stretched the boundaries of what we can do as an art center. So I will move now to another context. So I left. It was also a report that a private foundation I asked to do about if art helped community, and I got a report about my activity, and the bottom line was Galit supporting the boycott. And we will not support the center, the activity, it's great, everything, it's very good. But we will not support, or the advice was not to support as long as I'm director. So I say private institute, support, which is outside of Israel, Swiss a foundation see me as an obstacle not to support, I need to move away. This is the reason that I left. Politics of collection of politics. In 2008, I didn't know it when I made this exhibition, or I curated, sorry. It was a legislation dealing with basically succession or how to return work, a new policy around collection in Europe. Most of the museums in Europe, not as in the US, are state-owned or city-owned, like the case of Picasso, for example. The bottom line, it's better to have a parking lot in the city than to have a depot that's taking a lot of space, and also it's very expensive to maintain and to hold the works. This creates, the way that I understand it today, it creates what we see today, like working with the collection, bringing artists to work with the collection, bringing artists to work with the archive. It's created a lot of move. So basically the museums start to fight for their existence and for their collection by showing to the government that the public use it, that there is a need for the collection. So in one hand, it was a pressure, and it was another legislation in 2011. I didn't know it when I curated this exhibition. So with the request of the museum to work with the collection, I did something a bit different. I asked artists to, I invite artists, in this case here it's Akram Zatari, that worked with the Arab Image Foundation, Michal Hayman, that created her own archive in relation to psychotherapy. So you see the Rorschach behind, but it's also other Zondi collection. I will not stop with any one of the works, but kind of you can see more or less at the visual, and you can get. It was the Palestinian, it was not yet museum in Ramallah at this time. So Camp was a collection that made by Anadil Gallery, by Jacques Parsikian, of work that were only a list of work, but it was no collection. So we brought them and tried to see what it's there. It's Hannah Hurzig with a Black Market archive. This is how the Black Market, it's a kukulik that the couple collect during the Soviet occupation, and I know here it's, collect a lot of leaflet and brochure from events that happened there. So in the moment that the collapse of the Berlin Wall, or the Iron Curtain, it was immediately a need, and I can imagine also here, to create another narrative. So the narrative that was before under the Soviet, the artists start to position themselves and to ask what was there, what was the art, like the Polish art, for example, in this case, what was the Polish art? So it was for several years, it was a fight, who will create the narrative? Who will create the narrative that will tell the story of Poland from the Second World War till the fall of Berlin Wall. So this is one of the cases that Kukulik published the book, and also basically, so this is the work. It's constructed from the different events that happened at this time. And one of the questions that I was asked in the museum, why you choose an archives of artists, and why are artists at all dealing with archive, why they need to create an archive, why they're dealing with archive. And the answer was, for me, quite clear. When you don't have the information, when you don't have the history, when the history is fragmented, when you don't trust the books, so you start to create your own history. You start to reconstruct it. You try to build it to have the story that you understand, which is, I think, Central Europe didn't experience war and this kind of break of ideology. But I think many places that went to this process, and this is a question for you, how it's happened here, and if it's still in the process of re-narrating the past and connect it before and after or not. This is the work of Leah Peshovsky. Also, it's related how she constructed the art history, what kind of information she had before the fall of Berlin Wall and after, yes, the realization that the history that she was told, it was not the history that everybody knew about the art. So it was different kind of narrative that I put them against or with the museum collection and archive. most of the museum, the collection and the archive are separated. They have two digital systems, so they not work with one. So what will be in the collection, what will be in the archive? How they spread, do you know? Anyone has an idea? Why there is an archive, what is the collection?
An archive would be more structured in a collection.
I would say the first, you can say that it's the value. So the archive will be the symbolic value, and the collection will be the, I would say, insurance value. If it's not a market value, it's the insurance value. So the works in the collection, the artworks are in the collection, the archive is the communication. So during today, we can talk about like emails, yes, if the curator or the director write to an artist, all the exchange will be in the archive. So the stories about how will be in the archive and the work will be in the collection. This is the symbolic value of one. It's now that it's changing because certain artists become famous, and then everything that was written not in email, with the handwriting, with the letters in the past, become valuable because it's original. So it has the same fate as a market. Yes, this is the dangerous thing about the collection or about the archive, that it transforms the value by its being original. But it not will happen with the copies. Yes, it's the same fate of the collection or the artwork or photography. It's the same process. So the archive, it's the stories, the newspaper, for example, of Picasso will be in the archive. The work will be in the collection. So they will be separated. It's kind of lobotomy, and lobotomy probably in relation to power and. But also a great ground for curators to work with both and to connect them. So one of the questions that I had about, and this is, I'm talking about like, I was offered to work with the collection, but I was too short time with the collection. I didn't feel that I can do, to hang works or to create a narrative out of a collection that was, the museum established in '36. Too much work in the collection, and I felt that I can't do something that I feel that's comfortable with myself. So I asked another question. It was, the museum opened in '36. Up to today, during the Nazi time, it was operated like many other public institutes, but it's operated differently. It was a Nazi headquarters, like many other public institutes. It was not exceptional in Eindhoven. So I asked, where are the files? Because the story of the museum, or the collection, the museum is by the directors. So each director bought this kind of work. He was liked this kind of art, etc., etc. So what the director during the Nazi, what he liked, what kind of art, what kind of exhibition were there. I was told that it's impossible to find the files, they was burned. And okay, so let's try to see. It was communication, so let's try to reconstruct. It was not an option. So I chose something else. I chose to show to the public the work that under investigation from the Second World War, the looted art. So many works looted, and it's not just the museum, this museum, but it's all over Europe. There is a research about works. And the way that you can start, or the investigation start about an artwork, it's by when you see that one hand is missing. So it was in the artist studio, and then it was in the gallery, and you see the years, and you see which is written. It needs to be a file, another report that coming with every painting. So you see the hands, and then one hand is missing, or certain period of time, it's not clear how the work arrived from one gallery to one collector, or it can be many things, but it's the first investigation. We start with something which is not, the chronology, it's not there. So there are most of the expensive work of the museum, the Braque, the Koshka, etc., are under investigation. It's linked to a gallery in Cologne. One just cannot. The first art fair, do you know where it started? In Cologne. And just kind of to think at the time that it was started, I don't say that there is a direct relation. I didn't search. I don't know if anyone researched this. The relation between the looted artwork. So it was the public could see basically. So we didn't write the name of the artist near the work. It was a number and the case number. So people could see what does it mean, the investigation around looted work. Another thing, it was to a statistic to the collection. So the collection, it's one unit. The collection, it's true, in the collection there are many artworks, and in this collection there is a lot of work of Lissitzky. So this collection is famous about Lissitzky work. But there is other thing as a collection, and I think it's less interesting for me to talk about, okay, this collection contains this kind, or this is the period that what we used to collect. So the first question that we asked, it was gender. How the gender division in the collection. So you can see, and it was shared by decades. So it was an icon for a medium. So what kind of medium, decade, and gender. I don't think I need to explain what you see. The line of male artists, it's, this is Diana, she is the head of the archive, looking at the numbers. It's the corridor, the line of male artists till the end, and I think the female, it's going like this, and it continues to here. Basically, it's double a few times. So this was one of the things. So there is something in the collection. We can say it's more male collection than female collection in general. Or the director that was only male up to now, up to today, collect more male artists, mainly painters, a lot in the 80s. So it can be very helpful for research about sociology of art. This is another question about geography, so from where the work came. As darker it is, it's more works coming from, so we can see that it will be North America and a bit of Latin, and it will be, do you see, like very small here, like in the center, so it will be like center of Europe, and then it's grows. So this was the world, the area that don't have a color, it means that no war coming, so Africa, it's not exist. And the time that I did the exhibition, also Middle East was not exist. So the work, with this work, basically I brought the knowledge, and today the museum has certain work coming from other regions than I would say the traditional Western centers of art. So it will be today from Lebanon, it's the work of Akram Zatari, it will be work from Ramallah, from Palestine, not just Ramallah. So it's more works that enter to the collection. So, and this is the last one that was there. Was a bit later. It's about the value. So you don't have the perceived value. It's not attached to one work, but it's the value in general of works. So some work, the value stayed as was in 36, and some of them, the value of course changed. You can see it like by the lines. So you can see how much the value it's grows. So you can assess the collection again as one unit and not by certain artwork. This artwork more important than other artworks, because this is the narrative. So the collection, it's one unit, and the stories are the archive. So you need the archive to say about certain works, what happened with them, and how to narrate them. It's totally different. I'm going kind of back in time, but I think it's I hope it will work. I'm not sure because we changed computer. Allow, yes. Yeah. I'm showing it because it was another experiment. I was in 2007. I was in Hamburg, and we made an exhibition, which some of you familiar about the computer games, and we show it there. And in parallel, we brought part of the collection in the center. And the collection was constructed from work that I collect, and it was also work of Lebanese artists and Syrian artists that I can't show in the center, but I had them in the archive. So people or students that came to the center could see the work, but I will never be able to, I was not able to. And I had this fantasy that a collection, if the collection will travel, it becomes somehow international. It will stop to be Israeli, so then it can maybe go to one of the neighbor countries in Israel. It's never happened, but the collection that was supposed to travel for 3 years traveled for 10 years. And the agreement was very simple, and I think this is the beauty about it. It can be art center, it can be university, it can be any public entity or entity that want to show work. It's you need to pay one side, so you need to pay or to bring it or to send it. You need to pay one side, and you need to have the index free, so people can see what is there, and to have one unit that researchers can see the work by themselves. And then it was free to each one of the institute to show whatever they want, to make their own program, so it was no control. And each one of the institute could contribute work to the archive. So the archive go in time. And today this archive, traveling archive, have I think more than 30 institutes around the globe that each one of them contribute work. So it's not anymore the archive of the Israeli Center for Digital Art, but it's become a common work. And without the collaboration of each one of the institutes, it was not it was impossible to create it. So basically, it's not one collection, and the story of the collection and the works, it's without one mind. Yeah, it's really like a work that the will and the care of each one of the institute to protect it and to mobilize it, create something that today, if we will go, it's rich more than any, any other collection. And but it stopped because of customs. So this is another tactic that was very important: how to work beyond the border, how to imagine, how to try to activate. It's always like. How I can work beyond the border that was given to me, how I can create my own map of working and not to stay in the political or geopolitics that I was living in. So this is part of the tactics that I use, I think, today, and this is maybe like yes, I'm very bad with this. Maybe one, I will just finish with what I'm doing now. So the research that I'm doing in the past, it's refusing, so probably we shouldn't do it. Yeah, this is like different, different configuration, but the configuration up, it was the one. So the time. So the project dealing with the time, the present. It's called syndrome of the present. Different than symptoms. Syndromes, it's certain kind of, it's several symptoms that return, so that it's become a syndrome. I took this from one of the text scholars that I'm working. So we have a group. I invited artists and scholars to work together and to do something similar to liminal spaces, the same structure of traveling seminar, but not in one geography. So we met one in Saloniki, one in, if you manage to read it, in Izmir. And Turkey. Next meeting will be in Amsterdam, and then it will be in Recife in Brazil. The moment that I'm looking at, it's the 17th century, and I would say like reality changing rapidly. As a curator of contemporary art, I'm dealing with the contemporary, with the present. And to deal with the present, I need to have a distance. It's too much happening, and I can't anymore see. It's just impossible. So I'm going back to have a perspective. And it's so complex that I need to go until the 17th century to have enough distance. So I'm in the 17th century, and I'm looking about two characters. One, it's Sabbatai Tzvi, which is a Jewish messiah that after half a year converted to Islam, and Spinoza, that we know that he also left the religion. So we look at two Jewish reformists, religion reformists. We have another one, yes, but he managed. He was reformist but never converted, yes, and this is like the biggest Jewish reformism, which is called Christianity. But after Jesus, it was Sabbatai Tzvi. In the 17th century, 80% of the Jewish community worldwide heard about the Messiah. And as they heard about it, he converted to Islam. And he promised Jerusalem. The reason that I'm looking at him, because we can say that he dealt with territorial messianism. Territorial messianism before Westphalia Treaty. We can compare it with ISIS, for example, that it's another phenomena of pre-Westphalia. The way that they act, not accepting international and international law or international borders, and not acting. So the two characters, one, in general way, it will be, Spinoza will be like freedom of speech, democracy, all the values, important values that we appreciate and we wish to conduct and to inquire. But and I would say Sabbatai will be the opposite. Yes, it will be the messianic. It will be a manic depressivic. It will be the liar. It will be the one that become a Muslim and betray his people or betray the people that believe in him. I would say one few things why the trajectory of Sabbatai was something that I use also in Israel to go outside of the geopolitics. So wherever he traveled from from Gaza to the Balkans was the region that I was operating. So now I'm also following his footsteps and also his followers. 17th century, the Jew came from Jewish community from Portugal, from Spain, running away from the Inquisition, working in two places, in the Ottoman and in the Netherlands. It's the same group that's going also to Brazil. So it's the same in notarian document today that is scanned in the Netherlands. You can see that a lot of Jewish were dealing with a slave trade at this time. This is something that's not known enough, and now it will become, I think, quite a common knowledge, because many documents scanned at the moment, like starting 2 years ago, and this is like will be the end of my what I want to bring. So I'm creating basically the map of the present to the 17th century. So many things that emerged from the Reformation of the Church, beginning of the state as we know it, the secular state, if we want, a democracy, a secularization of the political system. Today, many things that created in the 17th century collapse. We see religion back to the heart of politics after 400 years of process of called secularization. International law change with the transatlantic law that was existing like almost 350 years. So those changes, I'm interested to see the seed and what has happened, and also to investigate. So it's not focusing on one event, but certain event that happened at the same time. That the line that connected dot, it's this false Messiah. And the question, one of the questions that we can ask, how in the 17th century, half of the Jewish world knew about the Messiah. They didn't have internet, social media. So it was social media at the time, and the newspaper. It's the same today, how the information, the newspaper, it was 3 main places that the printing house worked. It's one in the Netherlands, one in England, and one in Germany. It's interesting to look at the Netherlands because of tolerance. 17th century started with 30,000 people living in Amsterdam, ended at 100,000. It's a golden age. Refugees or immigrants arrived to the city, and it just bettered the city. Was not the opposite. So it's like to pull out a different kind of information that seems to be very relevant for today. One working in Europe, it's dealing with other agencies, I would say, than working in Palestine, and different demand. And one of them, it's a question of common heritage. It's familiar, or heritage in general, the use of heritage. Contemporary museum today called heritage museums. So heritage for what? So it seems that we are now talking from the end of history to the present. So we don't talking from the present to the future. It's from the future, we're looking at the present. So the museum that Curating, working with contemporary, already consider their heritage because the contemporary collection, it's, let's say in most cases, it's a bit older than me. And so what heritage to whom? Yes, this process doesn't work. But also the common heritage, we see that coming from Central Europe, common heritage, it's the Dutch with, for example, with Indonesia. So ex-colonies become elevated to be a partner to common history. And the story needs to be told. Why now? And the question, it's not that I have an answer, but I think it's something to look and to look very careful. Why now the story of the slavery coming up, and it's coming up in Europe, it's coming up in Latin America, it's North America, the question of indigenous, who has the rights to the land, returning works, remember the 2008 legislation, so Germany returning works to, whatever it's looted, and England the same, the Tate looking how to do the process, how to do the process ethically. So we hear from the museum that they need to work ethically. Yes, it needs to be made right. What is made right? You need to inform the public because in Europe the collection belongs to the public, it not belong to the museum. And we forget the idea that the museum, it's not own the collection, he's responsible for the collection. But the way it's behaved like it's belonged to the institute itself. This is one. We hear from the museum that they want to have more diversity, more inclusion, yes, to bring different kind of audiences in one hand, but on the other hand, they decide who is entering the collection. So in one hand, the policy, it's a policy of gatekeepers. On the other hand, it's open door. How it works, this open door with so I would say ethically, but maybe also hypocrisy or double standards. In one hand, the public can be diverse, but the collection need to be conducted by certain people. Why we don't have the collection? Why? Oh, I will ask a question. Can we shift to discussion? I will be more give the background. What will be the model of museum that really diverse or open? The museum, when I grew up, the museum was I will not say the evil, it was not the evil, but it was something to shy away from because it tells the story of the state, it tells the narrative of the state, it was not, it was the horn of the ideology. Yes, was always considered this. And today the museum are quite nice. They are inclusive, they talk with you, they try to bring audiences, they do program for kids, they do program for this. It's like everybody can find something. You can find something in our museum. What happened? What happened between this, to be the horn of ideology, to become very it's public oriented for sure, but to be very positive and to give a service to everyone and to be the answer for any problem in society.
Nowadays you cannot talk about museum practices as being unified. Of course, Barnabas Museum has different politics. They play with the collection and they really play with this idea of publicness of the museum in a totally different way, as the museums are more associated with the other ideology of neoliberalist economy. And of course, we have to speak in these terms of plurality when we talk about new museology as a new ideology, let's say. Because you can notice that there is a lot of pressure from this hybrid, political, economical, military hybrid to makes institutions to act as enterprises and to act as business-oriented institutions. And this ideology, which is oriented towards bringing more public, to bring more money, or addressed to new audiences, is in fact a trap. It's not a real use of the publicness.
So what the public use for? What the public use for?
For today, public.
Yes, because
in
the way that you read it, yeah.
is more like treating people as a mass of I don't know, people who can act to sustain this ideology of producing more capital in a cognitive capitalism. Because cognitive capitalism, in fact, it's a machine which is using the knowledges produced also by the participation of the audiences in the institutions to make money based on it. I mean, more to steal, to loot.
It's interesting. Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we assist to these, I don't know, new machineries to loot from the public their ideas and to use them for private interests.
You know, but there is something which is not clear to me, because the museums are public, like at the moment, or supposed to be public. Yes, the collection belongs to the city. I'm talking about Europe, mainly about Europe. The conditions in the US are different, and this is also another question. It can bring, so the money from tickets or numbers, yes, it's more the numbers as symbolic, I think, of use, yes. The collection is very important, we are very important, we need to be acknowledged because we serve the public. So it's one, in the past it was more, you know, it's like coming from the taxpayers, yes, so we need to give something back. So this is one story, which is also was not only this, and today it's like we need to basically to convince our needed in society, because it will be, if you are not profitable, yes, like any other business, you need to go out, right? Like this will be the model. If it's a business model, so you need to show why the state need to invest in you. If you are an entrepreneur, you need to show your you know, what you contribute. So, or you contribute with capital, this capital or another capital. It can be any kind of capital. So this is what they produce, but they really produce it. I would say, so the question how it works, because what you said, from what I see, like why not to take, and this is a demand, or like why not to work in the model of library? Why the museum need to own or to protect or to dictate who is there? Why the question of taste, yes, entering to the question of openness of to the public. Yes, you want to have diversity, but it's not diverse when it's coming to decision. So it's diverse only in one side. So the question of ethical coming, in one hand, this question of ethic, to act ethically, in the time that the museum act in the most unethical way.
Also, the problematic of ethics, it's so diverse today, and it is instrumentalized by different interest groups. Depends for whom a kind of canonical ethicism can function, if not, I don't know, modernity started to systematize a little bit what is ethics in relation with politics, more than, of course, the previous thinkers thought they could do. And now it's a new decision if ethics should function universally, or if ethics could be particularized on different political decisions. Because there is an ethic for leftist thinkers, and there is an ethics for right-wing thinkers. So where is ethics, and how can we have a kind of core ethics to be decided? And I mean, in my opinion, it is impossible to have an ethics now, as there is an impossibility to have a peace between Israeli and Palestinians, because there is an eternal war, and it is impossible to find a solution for.
So war, if I took it, like, war will be never ethical. War can't be unethical, because, you know, like one of the ethos of Israel, for example, if you take it like, yes, we are more ethical than other armies. This is the ethos. I'm not talking about reality. So basically the museum today, according to what you say, basically enter to this kind of big machinery of producing misinformation or untruths, as called by others.
This is used by both sides, misinformation,
yeah.
And this kind of fake news are used by everyone. There's not one entity who is using fake news against the other entity. All the entities are using fake news.
And for a long time, it's not new, yes.
All the people, in a way, practically are trolls. There is not a kind of trolling practice which is not considered to be trolling by the other part. You know, I mean, this diversity of opinions and of positions nowadays is very, very hard to, I don't know, to be summarized in the people who are bad and the people who are good, between black and white. Because everything depends on beliefs, the way people congregate themselves, and it is also related with the way you gain access to resources and the way you make people believe that they have access, but in reality they do not have access. This is the way the political, economical, and military schemata is working today. And in fact, unfortunately, we are part of it, in a way. Even if there are small pockets of resistance, maybe they are still part of the machines.
So how you create an enemies, how you create, or how you choose your friend and enemies, how you...
You just have to decide. And you will be in one position, but in the same time you have to be aware that your position is damageful for the others. Even if you are thinking about yourself that you are good, that you are part of the good people.
Yes, the good people, it's one of the good people are part of the problem. Yes.
Because everyone.
No, but the good people, it's moral.
They are the smartest, the beautiful, and the truthful people of the world. Everyone is assuming this. Everyone is assuming that they choose the right path. But in reality,
I think you're a good person.
of course, everyone is thinking about themselves, that they are part of the good and the.
Yes, but when you are thinking that you are
beautiful people.
when you are thinking that you are good, then it's already a different position than thinking that you are good. Yeah.
To think about yourself.
When you are thinking about yourself, that you are thinking that you are good, it's a different position that.
It's one you shy away from the direct fulfill, like the feeling of being, but
it's a practice to go back a little bit to see the present, as you said. Because of course now curatorial methodologies are trying to foresee the future or to go back to investigate the history and to find out if there are some other things that can be useful for today's I don't know, models of society and so on. But I was assisting to a conference of Rosie Braidotti yesterday, and on the internet, of course. And she was saying that we are people from the humanities. I mean, people who are in the art world also are part of the humanities, and we are not aware about the language of STEM, of science, technique, engineering, and mathematics, who are now ruling the world, and that we are speaking the wrong language, and we are making the wrong movement in politics, and we should reconsider our position and relate it with Spinoza. Spinoza was one who is now very much quoted, that spoke about these multiple agencies around us. And if we are aware about this multiplicity of agencies, we can situate in a different way, not, let's say, not better way, because we don't know which is a better way, in a different way. Yeah. I mean, in this kind of conflicts, let's say, not wars, but conflicts.
I think it's the question. It's for me. It's not how to do better, and it's to limit, not to do worse. Yes, it's like basically I would say to be aware.
Relativistic, moralistic way we can think.
Yeah, and it's contextual. Like it's like I think like it's hard to talk now on this kind of idea of that I can say like 10 or 15 years ago to talk about something which is global, that we have any kind of norms that we share and we all understand. This has led to many things that we today can't work anymore. You need to really be specific about, if you want to deliver something that will be understood, it's very specific, and it can't be anymore generalized in any sense. Because the work of the museum with all this beautiful thing to bring more people, to open the collection, to open the archive, to give certain kind of freedom on the, at least the level of representation, it's also dictated by something which is something else that never reveal the action behind it. Yes, which is good or bad, it's another question. It's in the eye of the beholder, but the reason for it, and then you see the multiplicity of it in Latin America, that the system is totally different. The numbers are, are the numbers that was from one place, basically immigrant to somewhere else. They don't have any relation to a private museum. Private museum have different kind of thing to deal with than to show that they have more numbers. Just if they are in competition with public institutes. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I have a short question. But you are talking about this mechanism of museum adjusting itself. But maybe the question is for whom? For whom it's making this effort? Whom is the publics maybe, which are accessing all this universalized knowledge in this kind of device, in a sense, because it's not for everybody, it's for specific, maybe. There is a target, of course, no? Each museum has a target, and there is a circulation of this knowledge.
It needs to be many publics. It's true that the word will be used, it's publics, but every time, you ask to do when you make a public policy, yes, for the museum even, not to, for the whole. So who is your target? You start with a target and then you build a policy according to, I want to have more people in the age, 2 to 5, yes? So you build and then you have the one from 7 to 5, and then like you have, but this is, you talk about, this is very specific and it's not made enough. We can see it now as outcome, so the society, queer, so it will be, we want to attract those and we want to attract others. These become communities. And this is very interesting because the public, when we talk about the public, what is the public?
What I was trying to say is that even though the product is open, it is still limited to specific ranges of people, even to specific classes.
The question if it needs to be, why it needs to be good for everyone? Like what we know from that everybody can agree about, it will be wonderful if we all agree, but then I will say that we are in a very dangerous place.
It's good for who counts in that society. Counts meaning
museum
counts,
good for
politically speaking, like counts as take the content and share the narrative. This is what I was saying. It's very blurry.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say, you try to say that the museum can be good for everyone, but not everyone has an access.
No, the museum is open for everyone, but it's directed towards some specific people.
Yes, and I think it's try to get more, but it's a policy. Yes, it's not organic.
The space of a museum, like the division of the space, the materiality, the partition of the space, it's targeting specific people based on perception of the space.
A perception of the space. We can ask the core question: why we are thinking that we can own a culture? Why it needs to be under institute and why it needs to be propagated? Because the way it's structured today, it's not just to preserve. Yes, the core of the museum is to preserve it for the future. Let's say that this is the museum. It's already like doing many other things. It's not about the public, no. To preserve, you don't need any public. You just need to preserve. It's one work that you do. The public arrives later on. If this is the core work of the museum, but the idea that it's in someone's collection and not somebody else's collection. And culture, it's never one thing, no? Culture changing over time, so its culture starts in something and develop and become something else. So how it can be in one institute or one country or one place, why it's not belong? And then it's like the representation that you talk can be by, I have the model of, I think, I would say national without the national library, yes? That everything needs to be there, everything that is culture, and what it's present, it's what people take out of the library.
So one more note, and I finish, is that it has been developed as a mechanism of national state, no? A museum, but at the end now it could be a mechanism between national state and transnational entities. So it's more complex. Who owns the museum or the collection?
Anyway,
Yes.
that you're talking about two different paradigms of museums. He's talking about museums in Romania. You're speaking about museums in Europe. I mean, in West.
I think yes, it's exactly.
Different kind of institutions with different agenda and different ideology.
But I think like what will happen to institute here when, you know, in the integration, if it will happen, if it's with the EU, so it will be one policy, you know, like the museum don't have anymore their own policy. Each one has more or less, but in general they need to apply to a larger policy coming from the state. It's different way how to conduct and to shape everything in the same kind of shape, yes, to get in the end more or less what the policy said, because this is what we can see if we go back to legislation or decision that made, yes. So we can see how different museums do it, maybe a bit differently, but it's with the same aim, yes. So one aim is to clean the collection, to take it out, because it's not, the economy show it's not, you know, culture not so important, it's more important that it will be sustainable economically and will answer a certain kind of rubric. The way that it's done, it can be, and I think Romania will go in this direction if, let's say, it's the integration, if the EU will exist, I don't know, all this, you know, etc., etc. Yeah, so this is, and maybe we're talking about two different models, because there are different models of museums, but in general, the idea of owning culture, like holding, it's colonial idea, no? Like it's you take it from one place and you show it to others, you show what you have. So if it's already happening, so why not to open it and to continue this procedure in different way? And I would say more as a library that you borrow than one museum that and then, yeah, it's like returning something with your culture. It's not your culture, it's not my culture, it's culture. There is not one culture that belongs to someone, which is specifically, if we think about it, yes. It's not Romanian culture and I have the Israeli culture or Jewish culture and you have Christian culture. It's culture. It's one thing. It's not we have different culture. It's one culture that's changing all the time and the relation inside changing, yes. So the stagnation, it's a very strange idea about something which all the time in a change. So
I was also
I'm sitting here, we need to sit in the same, yeah.
No, I was also thinking that, because we talked about this practice of museums, but not in Romania, but probably will start, or not, practice of museums of collecting contemporary art. So artists are...
Not only contemporary, collecting in general.
Yes, collecting, but I'm just thinking about contemporary production and contemporary artists that are, I mean...
It's not contemporary anymore, it's heritage, they're collecting heritage.
Yeah, they're collecting heritage, but the thing is that sometimes in the mind of the artist that is producing, they are aware of this, so they are producing art as producing heritage. You know, they're already producing art in the sense that they I think they give specification how this work should be preserved. And this is like I produced now in 2018 something to be kept for 100 years in a museum collection.
This is very interesting because the idea of heritage is coming from a wider, like UNESCO. Yes, UNESCO. The idea of heritage coming from after the war, it's the word introduced and there is action. Now they're collecting like the memory of the world, I think it's called. And if we look at it, it seems to be like a Noah arch, so before the moment of everything will collapse. So UNESCO basically marking the thing that will enter to this box, yes, and this will be our heritage because now the idea of heritage, it's marking what is heritage and what didn't marked, yes, it's not. Yes, so it's not what yes and what not, but it's quite clear. And we can see that this process become more and more flexible with more questions, but it's appearing again and again, and it's the question where it's coming. I don't know how it's in Romanian, when heritage, when you translate it, it's related to atrocities in a certain way. In Hebrew, yes, it's related to this, it's kind of a connotation of something that left after. Yeah, it's patriarchal, yes. This is need to be our heritage and forget, yeah. But yeah, this is heritage for the future. So it's what I try to bring, that there are certain processes that if we look at them, they're not along the narrative that they propagate. So a lot of duality, maybe it was always, I don't know, I don't have this perspective of 200-300 years. This is what I'm trying to gain, basically by looking at the two characters and what it's like resonant, and also the role of religion in relation to the museum, for example, how it works. Sometimes it's my feeling that the museum functions as the church. So you want to feel you're good, so you go to see work about refugees in general, like art become, art as diplomacy, I think will be the slogan today, art as diplomacy. So there is a problem, let's send the artists, they will solve it. We don't know, we politicians, we out of tools, yes? We don't know what to do, it's so confusing. So let's send the artists will come with the otherwise answer. And I'm cynical a bit, I
think in Romania is a bit like proto of what you say. It's like we try to convince politicians that we can.
Of course, it's the outcome of years of work. You saw, like I don't say that I'm different. You see what I show by my history. Yes, working with idea that or using art. Yes, to create something which is different. But at the same time, I see how it's turned. Basically now it's the demand from art is to solve the problem. And we say all the time, yes, art, it's the answer. what we do with this. How you approach it when you say you steal, but I know that today I'm trying to, when this solution comes from the art, I will try to, I will be careful, I don't know. It's,
yeah, no, I agree. But it's, I don't usually talk about solutions. I mean, it's not, you cannot, I mean, it's just a way of maybe looking differently to some things, but not to get a solution or create a solution, offer a solution. I guess this is what we've learned in Cartier project, or the social cultural project, with working with community and
I'm afraid about methodologies, not about the consequences of the results of the project. I was thinking about methodologies to approach the production of, I don't know, cultural events in the project.
in Cartier.
Yes.
And
And you are thinking about the results. No.
how do you
I mean, for the moment, what is there? Everything
You don't
is
think about it
a little
as
bit
without thinking about
worse
it.
than the project started there. I mean, the project has intention to improve.
Yes, but that will
And it was possible.
put you in a position that you can improve. Like you started with from the position that I know I can improve. And
For whom?
I improve
Yes.
something.
for him, for whom?
Yeah.
This was a positive thing in thinking the project. Implementing it was very difficult because we know is to articulate art knowledge with social needs. It's very difficult. It's quite experimental. You don't know before what is happening.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that the first position that you take to improve something that, I mean, that is, who are you to think that you can? So this was something that we needed to first position ourselves, because we said we are artists and we can, like, but who are we?
Yeah, all the refugee problems solved by the artwork already long time ago.
Mediator, yeah. The teacher is just official position.
Well,
To
yes,
teach us
but
to
this is
know
how
already
you see
what
yourself
to do.
more than other people are feeling that it was really the teacher, the delivering, like, knowledge, I don't know, spray.
Yes.
And you as well.
There are things that succeed. There are things that fail.
Yeah, but we can discuss about failure